Julie McGann, welcome back.
Thank you, Brad.
And
um,
formally, Happy New Year.
yes, happy new. Well, still full of hope for this new year as well. Yeah.
I like the starting point of this podcast, hope. When we met last time, we talked a lot around well-being, and you were sharing different ways to connect, and you referenced meditation, which we're going to focus on quite a bit today as well. I was interested, though, now that we've come back, people have had a break, we've been forced into this new lockdown here in UK and across different parts of Europe. What have you been observing from the well-being space where you think we need to start really taking notice of that? This is now happening. People need to consider this. What's your professional observation on the well-being hot topics right now?
I think more and more companies are now looking into well-being, and well-being is definitely rising up on the agenda for many companies. They are eager to invest time and money, and when they talk about attraction of potential candidates, when they talk about retention, when they talk about engagement, well-being is being featured in every conversation today, which is in a way amazing, because it means we are coming closer to becoming more human-centered organizations in general. Because I think that's what was missing from many organizations in the past, is well-being not really being a serious topic of the agenda. Today, companies don't have a choice. It has to be a topic from every aspect, from having this strong immune system to resist COVID, so looking after the employees' physical well-being, but also mental well-being, because of how they're coping with the constant change, uncertainty, and the lockdowns, and then emotional well-being around engagement. How do you engage with people you don't even see? And many people I know, they started new jobs today, and they never met anyone apart from seeing them online. And one of my friends, she said she's got quite a senior role, and she said, I'm feeling like I made it all up in my head.
Right, she's never actually met anybody in person.
Yes. My other friend, she started a new job, and she's been having an induction online. So she had someone else's camera on her for 3 days. So she was even afraid to go to the toilet. So people are facing completely new realities. And if leaders are not aware, if leaders are not if leaders don't take time to understand that, appreciate that, and feel into that, then they may end up with a few disappointing results by the end of this year.
How do leaders balance the drive for results and everyone's, trying to work as hard as they can because of COVID and the impact it has, and that balance with well-being? Because if you're measuring the results and what gets measured gets done, you can see how it would be a very easy trap to fall into. That I ask if you're okay, you say, yeah, you're fine. Or you say, oh, I'm struggling a bit. Like, okay, but, how are you doing on the results? We're very quick to move that. What can we do to kind of show? Because when I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, wow, you're really talking about that human essence, that really touching people and connecting deeply with them, so it's not just about the work they do. I'm wondering if we're in that headspace as a leadership where we think like that still, or if it's still the number, the result.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's something we've been doing for a really long time, but today we can't escape the well-being question, because many people are struggling, and leaders know that, because they probably struggle themselves. They may not admit it to anyone, because that would be seen as a weakness, and but we are all in the same boat today. And we know that we have to learn how to cope with changes. So having this hardcore approach is not going to work anymore, because we have received an invitation, each single of us, to become more human to each other, because we now appreciate face-to-face connections much more. We appreciate if someone is inquiring about us much more. We becoming more focused on really having that human to human approach. If someone is really interested in us, someone cares about us, because there is less distraction. We're not going at such a fast pace externally, so we actually start noticing more, and this small things matter, and they matter from people, from our managers, and they matter from our leaders today. That's what will help us to keep going. Otherwise, many people will leave the company. If it's going to be just results driven, they will. There's no doubt about it.
Relationships has become so much more possible to see because of the disconnection that we have. I know you're right. And for years, I would talk to clients and leaders about, that balance between results on the one side and relationships on the other. And some people are more or less one or the other, but now it's about finding that balance where you can't be in a leadership position today and not be taking a compassionate approach, I imagine. And I know from leaders I talk to, one of the questions that is going around in their head is, how do I make my team feel engaged still? And it's hard on Zoom and Teams and WebEx and, whatever other platform you're using. I was talking to a fellow coach and friend the other day, Laura, and she's also heavily involved in kind of mindfulness and well-being as a practice. And she was saying that she just had a random conversation with somebody at the supermarket the other day, where she was checking something that she noticed on his car with his light, and then started talking to him. And he was like living on his own. And so she's immediately, how you doing? How you coping? And he's like, sometimes it just feels like I'm going mad. And I feel like I'm mad just saying that. And she was like, no, that's exactly what it feels. And so you're right in this kind of this global empathy we've had. I like the way you said it, this human invitation to be kinder, to be more gentle, but not looking at it as some kind of soft skill, but looking at it as a core skill. And I think maybe historically we've looked at this leading with compassion, leading from the heart, as a soft skill. Actually, it's quite hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's the center of new leadership that arises. And McKinsey & Co., one of my friends, she works for a global consultancy, McKinsey, and they lead, and I'm sure you're familiar, they lead in this leadership development. And they've just released the research last year on this new leadership emerging. And one of the key critical ones is compassion. The other ones are, what they said, it's like hopeful, something about positive hope, or like you stay positive, realistic, but hopeful, and you project that to your people. And it's about compassion communication. So there is a recognition that we can't go with an old leadership style. It's just not gonna take the company anywhere. Because I have to say, I have a friend, psychologist, very experienced people. They struggle in themselves being on Zoom. Everyone struggles in one way or another, one day or another. And if companies don't take this into consideration, they're gonna lose out. And that's what leaders need to start building now, brick by brick, this new recognition, as hard as it can be, not just to engage the mind, but to engage the heart. And it's very hard, because if you haven't done this before, it feels alien. Whilst for heart-centered people, it's very easy. look, just ask them how they feel. Just, I send them a nice email, give them a call, show appreciation, engage them into simple things you do to your family. But for many people, that's like a no-go area, and that's what's we've built, we inherited from the Industrial Revolution, and that's what I've been talking for the last 5 years to leaders. Like, guys, look, you follow a very old paradigm, and you need to shift into new. And today we all received this invitation. So
I love how you say it. You're right. I imagine there's something ironic about the fact that for 5 years you've been trying to position well-being as a critical part of a leader's growth, and now actually people are probably coming to you directly to ask you for that help. But for me, it goes to that point. I read the same McKinsey report. I downloaded their app, and they released them on the app. It's great.
Yeah.
And it was this idea of, they were comparing as well, weren't they? Leaders, futurist leaders, and leaders from the past. And there was a very distinct gap between the kind of desire to lead from the heart, creating that safety for people to want to talk and share, and the past, where it was very much, business as usual. And I think what Zoom and Teams and all these online virtual meetings we've been having has done is it's helped, as a byproduct, it's helped create a different level of intimacy between all of us. We invite each other into our homes. We see children moving around, partners doing the ironing behind, or cleaning, getting a glass of water, or, we see all this stuff. We see mums and dads holding kids who are, working, schooling from home, or babies because they need to sleep and they need a mum or a dad holding them. And that level of intimacy, when you think about the way most people end Zoom calls, we wave at each other. I never waved when I walked out of a business meeting. I never turned around to the group of clients and stood there waving at them with a great big smile on my face and told them to be safe. But now I do. And everybody is doing so. Maybe the world is ready now. Everything comes at its own pace, right? All things pass. And maybe now the time has sort of come for this idea. And so what I wanted to ask more about was, you talked about sort of emotional, physical, mental, different layers of well-being that the organization needs to sort of take care of. Can you break those down a little bit for us? So what are we thinking when we talk about people's physical well-being, when we talk about their mental well-being, when we talk about their emotional well-being? Are there distinctive differences between those three, so that I can start to analyze in myself which area maybe I should focus more attention on?
I think it's more familiar for people for companies to focus on the physical well-being of their staff, because that's been something that's been kind of done in the last few years. And when we talk about COVID, we talk about immune system. So people need to eat better, to exercise, to have more fresh air, to be in a good shape, to kind of have a better immune system, to potentially not to get the virus, because that will help. So, and that's been around for a few years. Different kind of events around physical activity. The famous. I always thought, what can't the companies create something else? It's all about steps. We're counting steps. But it's been, I've changed. I worked for about 10 different companies, and I worked in HR, so well-being was always on around. It's like, and it was always the steps. We're counting the steps, and I'm like, come on, guys, we surely can do a little bit better, more creative than that. But it's almost like that's all we know. So the physical element is more familiar for companies to go to, and it's kind of dictated by the environment. And then, of course, we have mental well-being afterwards. That's been developing in the last few years, and it's about mental health. But initially, it came through as a threat. It's mental illness. It's everyone was like, I don't want to show any symptoms just in case. So and then gradually, I think over the years, mental illness turned into more sort of mental well-being, and now it's lovely to see that actually companies talk about mental well-being, which took us some time to evolve to that kind of space that we all have mental well-being. And again, the lockdown helped because everyone had to look in their own, what's my mental well-being like? And emotional well-being still a gray area in organizations because sadly, as human beings, we are confused with our own emotions very often. Our emotions are strong. We have a masculine male approach to emotions, and I don't want to discriminate here, but it's just a general view where as boys been taught to hold their emotions back, not to engage with them. At work, it's not, you think with your head, you've been logical, you've been rational. Emotions are something you don't really consider at work. And then there's more feminine approach to emotions where we get sometimes too engaged into emotions. It's like over, being, it's all about emotions. So I'm feeling that. So, and then at work, people got confused what to do with emotions. So they push them away. And that's why when we talk about heart-centered leadership, it's so hard because no one knows what does it mean because it involves emotion, but what kind of emotion? What do I need to do to hug everyone or to cry, or what is it? So I think emotional well-being, and that's where mindfulness comes in as well, is because it's not just about the mind, it's about connecting with your emotions, allowing them, looking at them and exploring them, and realizing the nature of their nature. So it's I would say emotional well-being is less touched topic in organizations, but that's just my view.
I sense you're right with your assumption there, and whether there is, historically gender-based responses to emotion, I think created the stereotypes of the guy who can't cry or the female who is too emotional. I know the world isn't that binary anymore.
No. It's just you said rightly. It's just stereotypes that sometimes we follow in as well in a way in our head.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting because it's probably a very 60s and 70s way of working, which is you don't bring your emotions to work. Well, interestingly, I don't even go to work now. I work from home where my emotions are, and I'm not an emotional island. So clearly I've got to acknowledge that I feel things during the day. And it might even be to the point where I call you up as my boss and I say to you, listen, do you know what? This is going on right now. Between 11 and 2, I've got to help my kid do their online learning. I cannot be in meetings and the pressure it's causing is too much. So, and kind of, so, and when I'm sharing that, I'm thinking to myself in response to your point, you're asking people to be vulnerable, to open themselves.
Yeah, can I just, you said such an important thing. I just want to highlight it. You said we feel things. We do feel.
Yeah.
And I think that's what haven't been acknowledged at work, that we feel, or every single of us feels. And I think that's you touch it so deeply. And that hasn't been a topic of conversation at work ever, really. Sorry, carry on.
No, I get just to your point. It means we've got to get used to talking about feelings. So that presents a vulnerability that seems to go against a lot of the old teachings, not for transformative people working in HR, clearly not, but for those people that maybe haven't been on development workshops for a while, who think about inclusivity, who think about that sensitivity piece. It's a big leap to go from being, a regional sales director in a very numbers-based company to spending time with your team saying, so how are you feeling?
Yeah. I used to work for British Gas a while ago, and they're quite progressive company, and they just introduced from the with the coaching, the help of a coaching consultancy, this how do you feel sessions between the manager and employee, and managers struggle so much. They're like, I'm saying, how do you feel? How are you feeling? And there is silence because on the other side, employees like, what? You're asking me that? And it's because it's still in kind of that testing environment. It's not real, like people made to do that without really knowing what to do with it. It was a bit, yeah, it was very slow moving progress.
It's so interesting because from my perspective and my sort of research, especially into emotional intelligence, resilience, that ability to know what I feel, know why I feel it, where I feel it, how long I feel it for, that level of self-awareness helps the management of those emotions. So it's not that I don't express the emotion. It's actually about, for me, it's about learning the balance of how to express it in a really positive way. So I should be able to lean into an emotion at work, but I need to know how to lean back so that I don't lean in and then just dive headfirst into the emotion, because then I start making, long-term decisions based on short-term emotions. And
yeah, right.
that's not a good place to go as a leader.
It's a very complex topic. It's not black and white. It's not something we got used to. It's complicated.
Is everybody able to do it?
To
tap into that emotional well-being piece
for themselves. Yeah. With the help. I mean, if we go really deep, and that, Brad, we have many stuck emotions as human beings, and many of them come from our childhood.
Blame the parents. I always say, blame your mum and dad, save yourself thousands in therapy.
No, but we that's where we start unlocking and looking, realizing and learning, because the experience we had, emotional experience we had within our family unit as a young child, has a huge impact on our life first. And all psychologists know that, all psychotherapists know that, and I know you said you're a psychotherapist. So you probably have more insight than me about it, but and then of course meditation and mindfulness, for example, they help, as you mentioned, to start training yourself to have that level of self-awareness, of knowing what's coming up for you now. How do you react, whether you are in your trigger, kind of in this, what's triggered you, or whether you auto-responding, or whether you're trying to become more conscious and respond to something in a less emotional way or with more awareness. Because we run on autopilot, so sometimes we throw our emotions as just being autopiloted as we've done it for years. So it's like start unlocking and looking at it. So I think it's very complex. If you look really deep, it's complex.
And it suggests that we haven't really honored our emotions very well. That kind of suggests that it would, the workspace will look very different moving forward. Yeah. If we start to be able to connect on this kind of human level with ourselves. And then
my dream.
Look, you've mentioned meditation. I want to come on to it. It's something you do. We were joking before, organizations actually now coming to you saying, hey, what about doing some meditation here? But you mentioned something offline that I just wanted to bring in, because you also mentioned how even when organizations are putting these events on regularly, people still don't have the time to do them. And I'm wondering, in our last session we did together, you talked about the power of meditation, and we're back on that topic again. How do we make time for something that feels like it should take a long time? to do?
Well, Brad, you made a really good suggestion offline, so I would like to invite you to repeat it. So you had a really good
I
one.
make ideas all the time. I'm not always sure which ones are the good ones. But partly my feeling is that from a leadership perspective, and I think this is what you're referring to, I kind of have this feeling going on underneath me that says, if leaders across businesses were to start going to meditation lunchtime or morning meditation, and it doesn't need to be for an hour, it could be for 15 minutes or 20 minutes. If leaders role modeled it, my sense is that people would follow. Because if I see my boss do it, I'm more likely to be encouraged to. When you look out at sort of your clients and you see the reasons why people aren't coming, how do you get them to just come beyond the leaders following role modeling?
Usually through feedback. So if a few people tried, they have experiences, and then, as they say, come and try, and that's how it happens. So it's like a chain reaction. But if leaders get engaged, and if leaders happen to come to the session and really enjoy it, then they can have a real great impact, because then because they have obviously more power to change things. They can create. I've seen leaders creating lunch and learn and meditate sessions for their people where they were coming in. So you're absolutely right. Leaders, well, we know leaders do create company culture. That's, and if they're trying to introduce something and then they're busy working, staff just gonna follow them. So, and then, yeah, it's going to be just a tick box exercise. We do look up at our leaders. We do look up at them, and we do try and copy them in a way, follow them. So yeah.
Well, it puts the, not the pressure so much, but the capacity for success of these concepts, for them to really get traction in an organization. Leadership need to turn up again, don't they? I mean, a lot's been asked of leaders in the last 10 months, but I feel as though with a European winter lockdown that's in place at the moment, I think leaders once again are being asked to step up and step forward and change their game plan again. It seems that if we don't create that environment for people to really flourish and thrive, because we're not actually looking after them.
Absolutely, and maybe some leaders will have to recognize that they don't have the skills to do that. Maybe they did well in an old paradigm, but this new environment, you have to be more intuitive. You have to have more empathy. You have to turn the way you prioritize things completely on its head. And you have to prioritize well-being now, and you have to role model it. You have to prioritize listening to your people and speaking to them. And many managers and leaders have to, as they don't have the skills. I've seen that. I know that, and it's not something you can just turn on. It doesn't happen like that. So I think new kinds of leadership programs are required now urgently to go into organizations, to start changes the way leadership looks like today.
As somebody who runs leadership programs for corporates globally, I love that last statement. Inviting all our clients to come and introduce new leadership programs.
Absolutely, Brad. That's critical. They see, everyone sees it. I remember when I was doing my master's, we did pastel analysis, or, and any leader should go back to these basics and look at the environment and see it's completely changed. When you have external environments completely changed around you, and it offers uncertainty into the future, leadership is your number one priority. Changing is completely looking at what skills are needed, and consultancies like yours, or we talked about McKinsey, they are there to offer this hand as well.
Um, what do you say to somebody who isn't naturally empathic, is always in a rush, is very busy, probably very effective, productive, but isn't a natural empathizer? How can someone start to develop empathy for other people's well-being?
Usually, we are a reflection about of how we treat ourselves. So, if you're a natural empathizer, you're probably quite harsh on yourself as well. So you probably need to learn how to take care of yourself and connect with your emotions, and allow yourself sometimes to have rest, allow yourselves to do things you like. And it's interesting, I've seen a few wonderful spiritual people really, really changing their lives when they been working really, really hard, got to the top of the company. And I remember one of these leaders, she was saying to me, she got to the top of the company, she was this leader, hardcore leader, and then she felt really lonely, really unhappy. And she's like, where am I? What's going on? And she never attended to her emotions either. It all was about results. And then this moment changed her life completely. And now, it completely like changed her life story. And so it just shows that, for every leader who hasn't got empathy, they have to look within first. Yeah.
I really like that idea, because there's an honesty and a deep self-awareness understanding there, that if you're just saying, well, I'm not empathic, actually it makes you look right in the mirror before you worry about others. And leaders start with the self, so it goes right to the core of what leadership is, understanding the self. I want to come back to meditation, because is there an ideal time to meditate? I loved your point on the last podcast when you talked about you when you started off, it was like just 3 minutes, and then the next day was 4 minutes, and then 5 minutes for a couple of days, and you kind of slowly and gradually built it up. Is there an ideal amount of time or a regularity with which people should meditate in order to maintain and sustain a mental well-being?
There's definitely regularity. It's an everyday thing, and ideally morning and evening. In terms of time, it's for the beginner. It should be quite a short one, because the mind wouldn't be able to cope with any longer periods for a while. But if you sit in and you enjoy it, but beginners don't really enjoy it, because it just feels so unusual and hard, and your mind wants to go and check what's on your phone, what's on your email. So you almost that's why breathing, we talked about breathing last time, we can really induce that different state of relaxation. That's why guided meditations or music often helps, or smell, scent, so something that helps your brain to shift this state a little bit, because that's why people can't make time for meditation, because it's just your mind in a different wave frequency, and in order to shift that wave frequency, you have to induce a different state of being, and that could be through breathing, or or through guided meditation. So if you're a beginner, it's fine for you to feel anxious, to feel unsettled for a while, but just as with anything, just give it a go, and stick with it, and eventually you will start enjoying it, because you will feel benefits pretty soon, even if not. Maybe sometimes some people feel benefits immediately, and they have very stronger reactions in a positive way. So yeah, I think the consistency is the key.
You've mentioned guided meditation a few times. I want to work on the presumption that not everybody will know what that means or looks like. What is a guided meditation as opposed to a more private meditation?
Guided meditation is you obviously being guided by someone else with a voice that obviously you like, that has the vibrations that you like, into certain states or into certain visualization. And it's very helpful because our mind is everywhere, but when it's you're being guided, your mind actually likes these instructions and it just follows them. It just keeps us focused a little bit more. So it's a way of putting our mind in a certain state. It's like, like an old way of storytelling to a child when you go to bed. It's very similar. You just go into this dreaming world, which if I don't know if your parents have read your book, a fairy tale story. It's very comforting. It's very, it puts you in this really safe space, and that's what guided meditation does as well, in a way.
And where will you guide me? What are you getting me to do in a guided meditation? So what you mentioned instructions, I'll go with you where you're going. So what would I experience?
I would say, as a experienced meditation practitioner, I will guide you into your inner world. So there are people who guide an external world. Guided meditation is about guiding you through your inner worlds.
If I'm nervous to do that,
Why would you be? Have you got something to hide?
I'm hiding from my inner world.
What's wrong with your inner world? It means you haven't explored it. That's why.
I find this fascinating because in everyone I've met as a therapist, as a coach, there isn't anyone I've met who doesn't know exactly what is inside. And yet some people still are resistant to really taking a look or feeling where it can go. And I like what you said, that some people can almost immediately start to feel the benefits. And
Yeah.
I would love for people to feel that freshness, that alertness that I sometimes feel after a meditation, where I literally feel like the lights have been turned on. And even though I thought I was operating at quite a fast, furious, productive level beforehand, I feel just like, okay, let's go. I just feel full of energy. It's totally energized. And yet, saying that out loud sounds counterintuitive because I'm actually sitting there breathing, emptying my mind, following an instruction or focusing on a question where nothing might be happening for 10, 15 minutes. So I'm actually slowing everything down almost to then speed the energy up.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
What's your favorite part about what you do? Like, when do you get a real buzz in your work?
When people realize how powerful they are.
Uh-huh. Go on.
Yeah, people have immense power that they, they don't. They do know inside them. We call it potential in a corporate world, but they kind of have different reasons for not living up to that potential, not showing that power. But when they do realize their power. They do realize the power of stillness, for example, or silence, or the power of the sound of their voice, that vibration, or there's so many different techniques. Then it's and they realize this is just the surface of it. They can go deeper and they have more power. Then yeah, that's a whole change of someone's reality, and someone's consciousness. Yeah.
I know that people, again, it goes back to our kind of childlike roots, are driven as adults by, the stuff that happened when we were younger, the expectations of parents, sometimes the expectations of dead parents even, people trying to fulfill them. And it's for me, I was bowled over when I heard John Whitmore, the ex-motor racing driver and coach guru, talking, and he said, the real bravery is when you create your own path. To create your own path is the truest, most authentic, brave thing anyone can do. And the funny thing is that only you can find your bravery and your path, because it's totally personalized to you. So no one else can find it. So we talk, don't we, in corporates about untapping people's potential. But if we ask people to find their own power, it's such a strong word. It's such a demonstrative word. I know even in recent conversations I've had with people, they struggle with that thought of them being powerful or giving power to others. To the mental well-being piece, I think it's really important that we are clear how we tap into that power, or how we make sure we don't just give power to other people over us.
You know this, Brad. I have to say, and that's what you don't want to tell to corporate leaders, but I went on the entrepreneurial path just because of my meditation practice, because I got deconditioned. I realized I don't have to do what everyone else is doing. I don't have to believe everything else my brain is telling me.
Right.
And then I engaged with my heart, and I started listening to my own music, and I had to. Of course, I'm still, it takes time because you have your old self still being fearful, and you got to go through all these lessons, but definitely the danger of meditation to the corporate world, oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying that, is for people to become powerful and learning about their own path. But that's the truth.
I know what you're saying. I will talk to C-level leaders and highlight that just from the coaching approach, because coaching is like corporate meditation. It gives people a chance to hold a mirror up, breathe, have some safe space, reflect, deep dive analysis, look to make plans for what makes them happy and their true path. Coaching, for me anyway, business coaching can play a corporate meditative place, which means that leaders will often finish coaching and think, do you know what? This isn't the place for me anymore.
Yeah.
I need to go and become a carpenter and build coffee tables. That's my true, go for it. And of course, we say it with a smile, but that's the risk of anything. And if you give people that space to meditate, find their true path, understand, their inner selves, well, it's totally enabling. What do you expect? Not everybody's comfortable with that dynamic language, though. I don't know if you've noticed a resistance to people looking at themselves as having power, because power often has a negative attachment, I find, in the corporate world.
Yeah, that's why I said corporates say potential.
Mostly.
Yeah, but that's why I was attracted initially to HR. It was human potential, and I was like, human potential, unlocking human potential. But
no, because HR is living in a world of process, which doesn't necessarily unlock potential. In fact, it fights for space to unlock potential. And it might even be driven by a learning management system that offers, training. How do you truly unlock potential? Bring me back as we approach the end of our conversation today, and bring me back to mindfulness. You referenced that a few times as well. What else could we be doing? I mean, you talked last time about being totally present, taking moments to check and sort of notice what's happening. Are there ways of being even more mindful? How do we kind of slow down the pace and be totally present?
Well, you've just answered your question, Brad. Slow down. We operate for the last 2 decades. We operated at the level, and it's going faster because our machines are getting faster and faster. Our little phones can do so much more. We're trying to keep up with the speed of our machines, our computers, our phones. So we've been going with the pace that's not natural to us. This is not our human pace. We are nature. We are cyclical in nature. Our pace, observe nature. That's the pace. This is our natural pace, and it's only by slowing down that you will start getting attuned to your own self, to your true self, everything will fall into place. If you slow down, you become less agitated, less anxious, less stressed. You will pay more attention to people around you, to situations around you. So you answered it, slowing down. And that's what I think the planet invites us to slow down today by having this virus, by having these lockdowns, just learning how to slow down again. It's very unusual for us. We want to be running and doing things and looking at where everyone else is running and running after them. I'm missing out. And I honestly, as much I've been running prior to lockdown, just a year ago, we've been running with big corporates. We've been running a series of the art of slowing down sessions, where we would organize beautiful spaces with, affecting people's senses, your smell, your vision, everything, and then having guided meditations on. And just after 10 minutes, they would report on their stress levels, and they were just slowing down. And then the lockdown hit us, and I was like, oh. And I've realized that even though I've been running slow down sessions, I was still running myself. I was still rushing myself. And I was like, wow. So let's all slow down. There is no risk there.
I think that's a perfect pause point for our conversation today. Let's all slow down in how we operate, how we live, and take the positive out of this pandemic, which has forced us all to take a little look and see if we like what's going on. So, we've really got a choice. Julie, I've enjoyed this conversation as much as last time. Can I persuade you to come back again soon?
You're joking me. Are you serious?
I think we should get you back again and touch base with you when we're coming out of lockdown. People are finding a new way of living. They're getting vaccinated, and maybe we could help them with some more content around meditation and mindfulness, so that we can help people keep growing themselves.
I would welcome this opportunity to see you again, Brad.
Julie, that was brilliant. Thank you so much for your efforts.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.